Hi, I'm Coach CoachClemens, and welcome to another edition of Tips for a Perfect Season. In our last couple of videos, we talked about the difference between responding and reacting, and we talked about the behaviors that we all need to employ to respond more. Today, let's talk about drivers of react mode, or warning signs that we may be about to react and do something that we're going to later regret. So, what are these 4 warning signs? The first warning sign is selfish. That's where the ego gets involved. And it's me-driven behavior. And what we're trying to do is avoid pain or discomfort. And so we end up doing a lot of rationalizing. Oh, Johnny won't mind hitting last again in the lineup. It'd be too much trouble for me to have to redo the entire sheet. Or, no, we're not going to take batting practice tonight. I'm cold. I don't feel like doing that. We end up rationalizing a lot of things away, and it's at the expense of other people because, again, it's our ego or it's all about me, my own pain, my own suffering, my own discomfort. I'm trying to avoid that. So selfish is the first one. Second is emotional, and that's where a strong emotion is driving our behavior. And we're trying to protect, whether it's fear, whether it's frustration, whether it's anger. This emotion is bubbling up inside of us because an umpire did something, a parent did something, a kid did something, and man, we've got a strong emotion and it is pushing us in a direction, and something's going to come out of our mouth or we're going to take action that ultimately we're going to regret later once we have a little bit clearer mind. The strength of the emotion has faded and our rational mind, it takes over and says, what was I thinking? What was I doing there? So when you feel a strong emotion coming on, that's a sign that you may be heading towards react mode. Third warning sign is rutted. And that's, well, we've always done it that way. Hey, I've got this practice plan, I've got this routine, I've got this thing, I've got this way of handling this situation. I've always done it that way, and that's the way we're going to do it. And that's because it's comfortable. We've gotten comfortable doing it a certain way. And it's safe. It feels good to do it that way. But the problem is that our situation may have changed. The environment may have changed. The variables around us have changed. And so the solution that worked the 4 or 5 times before may not apply right now. But we're in our rut and we're happy and we're comfortable with it and we're going to do it no matter what. The fourth warning sign is what I call cranial bypass. And that's just immediate action on the first thing that comes to mind. I have no idea where this thought came from. It just popped into my mind and I act on it. Or sometimes even worse, this thought comes into my mind and I say something. And that's when I get into a little bit of trouble sometimes, whether that's saying something to a parent that I didn't want to, saying something to a kid I didn't want to, or saying something to an umpire that he or she didn't want me to say. So can get into a lot of trouble with cranial bypass. And so as we look at these 4 warning signs, selfish, emotional, rutted, and cranial bypass, yeah, we've all done all of them at some point in our lives, but we have tendencies. There's probably 1 or 2 that are more habitual for you. So it's important for you to be aware of what those are so that when you're in the heat of the moment, you can say, uh-oh, I'm starting to be a little bit selfish right here. Or ask your question, am I being selfish right now? That's a good way to not get into react behavior and be able to respond to that situation. The other way is to get a buddy, get an assistant coach, walk them through the respond-react methodology and say, look, one of my hot buttons is emotional. That's when I start to get emotional, I'm not always aware of it. I need your help. When you see me getting into that type of behavior, tap me on the shoulder, figure out some sort of warning sign there that the 2 of you can kind of flash one another so that you can back off and make sure that you don't react in a situation. I talk about these four drivers of react mode, and I have some examples of myself going through them in the book, A Perfect Season, A Coach's Journey to Learning, Competing, and Having Fun in Youth Baseball. Well, this has been another edition of Tips for a Perfect Season. Thanks for joining us, and here's to your perfect season.